Order! Order in the Galactic Council! High Chancellor Vexathor slammed their gelatinous appendage against the quantum crystal podium, sending ripples through their translucent body. We must address the human situation before it gets even more out of hand. As the Council's designated chronicler, I, Ambassador Crixatal, dutifully recorded the proceedings while trying to suppress my own trembling tendrils. The humans had only joined the Galactic Federation 3 solar cycles ago, but they'd already managed to cause more chaos than a quantum hiccup in a probability drive. The evidence before us is... Vexathor's voice wavered, their bioluminescent patches flashing in distress. Deeply disturbing. Would the esteemed ambassador from Earth please explain why a human elementary school was found housing a colony of plutonian acid-spitting slugs? The human ambassador, a surprisingly cheerful woman named Dr. Madison Powell, stood up and straightened her suit. Oh, you mean the science class pets? The children have named them all. Little Timmy's even taught them to do tricks with their acid glands. It's quite impressive, really. A collective shudder ran through the assembly. I watched as 17 different species simultaneously activated their emergency atmosphere purifiers, despite the fact that we were in an enclosed chamber with no slugs in sight. Tricks? Vexathor's normally purple hue turned a sickly green. Those creatures have dissolved 3 mining colonies. Yes, but that's just because nobody gave them proper enrichment activities, Dr. Powell explained, pulling up a holographic display. Look how happy they are playing with their acid-proof toys, and they're excellent at teaching children about basic chemistry. I'll never forget my first encounter with humanity's peculiar proclivities. During our initial contact mission, our survey ship had encountered a massive plasma-consuming space whale, a Class X predator known for swallowing small moons. While our crew prepared to execute emergency evacuation protocols, the human vessel sent out a small shuttle. "Hello, beautiful," the human pilot had cooed over the open comm channel. "Are you hungry? Would you like a nice hydrogen snack?" We watched in horror as they proceeded to deploy what they called a feeding buoy, essentially offering the moon-eating monstrosity a treat like it was some kind of oversized pet. Even more horrifying, it worked. The space whale now regularly visits human outposts for snack time and allows their scientists to study it up close. Furthermore, Vexathor continued, bringing me back to the present, we have reports of humans attempting to, and I quote, boop the snoot of a syndicate viper snake, the same species responsible for the fall of the entire Rigelian Empire. To be fair, Dr. Powell interjected, she was just trying to be friendly, and now that same snake helps guard an orphanage on Mars. The kids call her Mrs. Noodles. I added another note to my growing file. Humans appear to have no concept of self-preservation when confronted with deadly creatures. Instead, they display an inexplicable urge to give them infantilizing nicknames. The council chamber erupted into chaos as various representatives shared their own encounters with humanity's bizarre behavior. The Arthropodian delegate was particularly upset about humans keeping pet spider colonies in their homes. The Cephalopod Union representative seemed personally offended by something called octopus enrichment toys. Enough! Vexathor's thunderous call for order sent ripples through the quantum crystal walls. It's clear we need a thorough investigation into this matter. Ambassador Crixatal. My tendrils stiffened. Yes, High Chancellor. As our most diplomatic and expendable representative, you will travel to Earth. Document these human-predator interactions. Find out how they're accomplishing these impossible bonds with deadly creatures, and most importantly, determine if this poses a threat to galactic security. I felt my chromatophores pale. With all due respect, High Chancellor, couldn't we send a probe instead? The last probe we sent was adopted by a human family who thought it was, and I quote, lonely and in need of friendship. Dr. Powell beamed. Little Robbie is doing great, by the way. The kids taught it to play fetch. And that's how I, a perfectly reasonable hydrozoan who had spent my entire career avoiding anything with teeth, claws, or exoskeletons, found myself assigned to investigate humanity's disturbing habit of befriending the galaxy's most dangerous creatures. Little did I know the plutonian acid-spitting slugs would turn out to be the least of my concerns. My first day on Earth began with what the humans called a small tour of their beginner-friendly wildlife sanctuaries. I should have known something was wrong when they issued me a reinforced environmental suit, rated for deep space combat. "Don't worry about the honey badgers," my guide, Dr. Eleanor Murphy, said casually as we approached a facility that had more warning signs than a nuclear waste depot. "They're just a bit grumpy before their morning snack." Grumpy. I hovered closer to the door, my tendrils curling defensively. According to galactic records, honey badgers were responsible for defeating 3 separate alien invasion attempts. "Oh yeah, that was hilarious," Dr. Murphy chuckled. "But these ones are sweethearts. Watch this." Before I could activate my emergency teleporter, she walked into an enclosure where several of the infamous creatures were lounging. My horror peaked as one of the battle-hardened terrors rolled over and presented its belly for scratches. "This is Barbara," Dr. Murphy said, scratching the honey badger like it was some kind of harmless pet. "She's our emotional support badger, great with anxiety patients." I made a note in my report. Humans appear to have redefined the term emotional support to include creatures that could easily dismember them. "Would you like to pet her?" "I would rather swim in a supernova." "Suit yourself," Dr. Murphy grinned. "Let's check out the beekeeping sanctuary next." I had read about Earth's bees, tiny flying armies with poisoned spears that humans somehow convinced to make food for them. I expected some kind of high-security facility. Instead, we found an elderly human tending to several hives wearing what appeared to be a thin mesh veil. "Morning, Margaret," Dr. Murphy called out. "How are the girls today?" The beekeeper turned and waved, her suit covered in thousands of the stinging insects. "They're a bit excited. We're trying out a new interpretive dance class. The queens are really getting into it." I watched in mute horror as Margaret demonstrated what she called the waggle dance, while surrounded by enough bees to take down a small army. The bees, rather than attacking this clearly insane human, seemed to be joining in. "Are those bees choreographed?" "Margaret used to be a ballet instructor," Dr. Murphy explained. "She says the hives have a natural sense of rhythm." My report was becoming increasingly difficult to write. Humans teach war insects to dance, purpose unclear, possibly preparation for military entertainment division. But the real shock came when we visited Dr. Murphy's own home. I had assumed we were done with the tour. I was wrong. "This is Gerald," she said, leading me to her backyard pool. "He's a giant squid I'm rehabilitating." I stared at the massive cephalopod lounging in what should have been a recreational swimming area. It had to be at least 50 feet long, with tentacles that could crush a shuttlecraft. "You keep it in your pool?" "Well, he needed a place to stay while recovering from his depression. The ocean can be pretty lonely, you know. Plus, he's great at pool parties. Makes a killer fruit punch." The squid, hearing its name, lazily lifted a tentacle and waved. "He's also fantastic with the neighborhood kids, teaches them all about marine biology. Watch this." Dr. Murphy pulled out some underwater toys. "Gerald, pop quiz time." The next 20 minutes consisted of watching a giant squid, a creature known in galactic chronicles as the terror of the liquid worlds, correctly identifying various fish species by pointing at flashcards with its tentacles. It even got a little trophy for getting all the answers right. Humans, I recorded in my increasingly frantic notes, appear to have turned education itself into a method of subduing lethal creatures. Further investigation required to determine if knowledge is some form of mind control. As we headed to our next stop, I received an urgent message from the Galactic Council. Reports were coming in about humans attempting to establish diplomatic relations with a newly discovered species of crystalline mantis on Kepler 186f. The mantids, known for their ability to slice through battleship hulls, were apparently being offered something called friendship bracelets. "Oh, that'll be my colleague Dr. Chen," Dr. Murphy beamed. "She's brilliant with arthropods. Did you know she taught a colony of assassin bugs to play chess?" I felt my chromatophores flash in distress patterns. Don't assassin bugs dissolve their prey from the inside out? Only if they're feeling antisocial. Since they learned chess, they've been much better at conflict resolution. Looking at my schedule for the rest of the day, which included visits to something called a reformed murder hornet sanctuary and a Wolverine rehabilitation center, I began to seriously reconsider my career choices. "Ready to meet the rest of our residents?" Dr. Murphy asked cheerfully. "No," I replied honestly. "Perfect. You're going to love the Jumping Spider daycare. They just learned how to high-five." I'd like to say the Jumping Spider daycare was the strangest thing I encountered during my investigation. I'd like to say that, but then I'd be lying more than a quantum politician during election season. "Welcome to the Alternative Pet Sanctuary," Dr. Murphy announced as we approached what looked like a tropical resort crossed with a maximum security prison. "This is where we house some of our more unique companion animals." The first enclosure contained what I recognized as a Komodo dragon, one of Earth's surviving dinosaur descendants. According to my research, these creatures were walking bacteria factories whose bite could kill most carbon-based life forms, so naturally I found a human child reading it a storybook. "Oh, that's Lisa and Mr. Sprinkles," Dr. Murphy explained. "He loves the very hungry caterpillar. We think he relates to the protagonist. Mr. Sprinkles, a creature that could bite through metal, was wearing a tiny party hat and appeared to be following along with the pictures." "They're having a birthday party later," she continued. "Mr. Sprinkles loves birthday parties, especially the part where everyone sings to him." I added to my notes, "Earth's apex predators susceptible to children's literature and group musical performances. Possible weakness?" But that was just the beginning. We rounded a corner to find a family having a picnic with what appeared to be an entire colony of murder hornets. The insects, known across 3 galaxies for their ability to punch through protective armor, were sharing tiny sandwiches with a pair of giggling toddlers. "The Wilsons helped rehabilitate these hornets after their nest was destroyed," Dr. Murphy said. "Now they're one big happy family. The hornets even help with pest control in their vegetable garden." "You're telling me," I clarified, my tendrils twitching, "that these humans took one of the most aggressive species on their planet and turned them into gardeners?" "Well, everyone needs a hobby. Besides, the hornets really enjoy it. They've even started color coordinating the flower beds." I watched as a murder hornet carefully adjusted a tulip to better match the overall aesthetic of the garden. My report was becoming increasingly surreal. Deadly insects display unexpected interest in landscape design, possible application in planetary terraforming. Next, we visited what Dr. Murphy called the Enrichment Center. Inside, I witnessed an octopus, one of Earth's most intelligent escape artists, engaging in what appeared to be an underwater puzzle competition with human children. The octopus was winning. "That's Professor Tentacles," Dr. Murphy said proudly. "She's teaching the kids about problem solving. We had to install better locks on the facility after she figured out how to pick the old ones. She kept breaking into the library at night to read marine biology textbooks." The octopus reads. "Oh yes, she's quite the scholar, currently working on her thesis." I stared at her blankly. "That was a joke," she clarified. "She's really more interested in engineering. Built herself a jet propulsion system out of recycled water bottles last week." Before I could process that information, an alarm went off. "Code P! Code P!" a voice announced over the intercom. "Professor Tentacles has acquired contraband tools again." We rushed to the octopus enclosure to find the 8-armed mastermind attempting to upgrade the facility's filtration system. She had somehow obtained a wrench and several blueprints. "Now, Professor," Dr. Murphy said sternly, hands on her hips, "we talked about this. No unauthorized facility modifications without filling out the proper paperwork first." The octopus had the decency to look sheepish, all 8 arms drooping as she reluctantly handed over the wrench. "Don't give me those big eyes," Dr. Murphy continued. "I know you're just trying to help, but we have building codes to follow." My notes at this point were becoming increasingly incoherent. Earth cephalopods display engineering aptitude. Facility security compromised by well-meaning 8-armed physicist. Humans respond with bureaucratic solutions. But the true pinnacle of human insanity revealed itself in the next exhibit. A family of 5 was enthusiastically playing what appeared to be a board game with a wolverine. Not just any wolverine, but one I recognized from wanted posters across the galaxy. The infamous Mountain Terror that had single-handedly destroyed a pirate outpost on Mars. Is that Wolverine playing Monopoly? Oh yes, that's Mr. Snuggles. He's absolutely brilliant at property management, though we had to ban him from being the banker after the Park Place incident. The Wolverine, wearing a miniature top hat and monocle, moved his piece carefully around the board with his claws. When he landed on another player's property, he delicately counted out the play money with his murder mittens. Mr. Snuggles teaches financial literacy classes on Thursdays, Dr. Murphy added casually, as if this was a completely normal thing to say about a creature that once terrorized the solar system. The kids love his lectures on responsible investment strategies. I watched as this former scourge of the spaceways carefully mortgaged Mediterranean Avenue to fund a hotel purchase. My report to the council was going to read like a fever dream. Former space pirate Nemesis now conducts economic seminars. Possible breakthrough in rehabilitation through board game therapy. As we prepared to leave the sanctuary, I noticed a group of children leading what appeared to be a parade. The parade participants? A line of peacefully marching cassowaries, 5-foot-tall birds known for their ability to disembowel creatures 3 times their size. "Oh right, it's Wednesday," Dr. Murphy said. "They're heading to their dance class." Dance class? Cassowaries have a natural talent for tap dancing. Something about those deadly feet and rhythm, you know. I watched as Earth's most dangerous birds donned tiny tap shoes and began a surprisingly coordinated routine to Singing in the Rain. The Galactic Council called an emergency session 2 Earth weeks into my investigation. Not because of any disaster with Earth's dangerous creatures, but because other species had started asking uncomfortable questions. "What do you mean the Arcturians want to know our secret?" Dr. Murphy asked as we hurried to a diplomatic briefing. "We don't have any secrets. We just treat our animal friends with respect." "The Arcturians," I explained, trying to keep up with her brisk pace, "believe humans must possess some advanced technology or psychic abilities to achieve these bonds. They're particularly interested in how you manage to turn cassowaries into tap dancers." "Oh, that was easy. We just noticed they had a natural sense of rhythm and—" She was interrupted by an urgent transmission from Galactic Defense. A group of Syrian weapon dealers had been caught attempting to smuggle tardigrades off Earth. "Tardigrades?" Dr. Murphy frowned. "But they're already in space. They're literally everywhere." "Yes, but Earth's tardigrades are different. You've somehow turned these microscopic tanks into—" I checked the report and sighed heavily. "Racing champions?" "The microbial derby is a time-honored tradition," she protested. "Besides, the tardigrades love it. They even pick their own racing colors." Before I could question the logistics of microscopic racing fashions, another alert came through. The Crab Nebula Coalition was demanding access to Earth's jumping spider training programs. "Absolutely not," Dr. Murphy said firmly. "They're not ready for that responsibility. Did you know they wanted to skip the friendship bracelet step? That's just asking for trouble." I added to my increasingly bizarre report. "Humans appear to have established elaborate diplomatic protocols involving arts and crafts. Effectiveness questionable, but strangely consistent." The situation reached its peak during what became known as the Great Wolverine Incident. A delegation of Proximan traders, attempting to replicate human success, had tried to establish their own dangerous creature sanctuary, without, as Dr. Murphy pointed out in horror, any proper enrichment activities. "They didn't even provide board games," she exclaimed, pacing the crisis center. "How are they supposed to learn financial responsibility without Monopoly?" The resulting chaos had led to 3 diplomatic incidents, 1 interrupted ballet recital, and a very confused Wolverine who kept trying to collect rent from passing spaceships. "This is exactly what we were afraid of," I told the emergency council session. Other species are trying to weaponize Earth's unique relationship with dangerous creatures. Weaponize? Dr. Murphy looked offended. Mr. Snuggles isn't a weapon. He's the reigning monopoly champion of the Northern Hemisphere. He's saving up to buy real estate. The council chambers erupted into chaos as various species demanded access to Earth's dangerous creature pacification technology. The arthropodian delegate was particularly insistent about learning the secret of spider daycare protocols. That's when Dr. Murphy lost her patience. "Now listen here," she said, stepping up to the podium. "You can't just decide to make friends with dangerous creatures because it seems useful. That's not how friendship works. Did any of you even try giving them proper enrichment activities, mental stimulation, creative outlets?" The chamber fell silent. "I mean, look at the Proximan incident. Those wolverines didn't want to become weapons. They wanted to learn about property management and generational wealth building. Did anyone even ask what they wanted to do with their lives?" I watched in amazement as Dr. Murphy proceeded to lecture the most powerful beings in the galaxy about the importance of proper pet enrichment programs. "And another thing," she continued, warming to her topic, "has anyone considered that maybe these creatures aren't actually that dangerous? Maybe they're just bored and misunderstood? When was the last time any of you tried teaching a mantis shrimp about color theory?" "Color theory?" the Proximan ambassador asked weakly. "Exactly. Did you know mantis shrimp can see 12 primary colors? 12. They're natural artists once you give them the right supplies. We have an entire gallery of their work back on Earth." I hastily added to my notes, "Humans appear to have discovered that most dangerous creatures in the galaxy simply suffer from lack of creative outlets and proper financial education." The crisis reached its pivotal moment when a group of pirates attempting to steal Earth's secret technology raided what they thought was a high-security research facility. It turned out to be a tardigrade racing track during championship season. The resulting incident involved several confused pirates being lectured about sportsmanship by microscopic creatures wearing tiny racing stripes, while a wolverine in a referee outfit enforced proper track and field regulations. "See," Dr. Murphy said triumphantly as we watched the security footage, "Mr. Snuggles has such a natural talent for conflict resolution through proper rule enforcement." The pirate captain was last seen sitting in a timeout corner, being sternly watched by a jumping spider wearing a hall monitor sash. After the pirate incident, it became clear that humanity needed to properly showcase their methodology before the galaxy dissolved into chaos. Thus, the first Galactic Dangerous Species exhibition was born, though humans insisted on calling it the Interstellar Friend Fest. The key, Dr. Murphy explained to a packed auditorium of alien diplomats, is understanding that every species has its own interests and talents. You can't just approach them with a one-size-fits-all friendship protocol. To demonstrate, she introduced the Mantis Shrimp Art Collective. 12 members of the species known for punching with the force of a bullet proceeded to create an elaborate light show using their natural abilities to manipulate and reflect the 12 colors only they could see. "Notice how they've developed their natural hunting abilities into an art form," she explained, as the mantis shrimp signed autographs with their attack claws. "They're still the same powerful creatures. They've just found a more fulfilling way to use their gifts," and I added to my notes, "Humanity's solution to dangerous creatures appears to be aggressive encouragement of hobby development." The exhibition continued with what the humans called their apex predator talent show. I watched in mild horror as formerly feared creatures from across the galaxy demonstrated their newfound passions. A pack of velociraptors cloned from Earth's ancient DNA performed a surprisingly nuanced interpretation of Swan Lake. Their tiny arms, it turned out, were perfect for the more delicate ballet movements. We discovered they had a natural appreciation for classical music, their trainer explained. Though they prefer Tchaikovsky to Mozart, they're very particular about their artistic integrity. Next came the reformed murder hornet circus. The insects, now wearing tiny sequined costumes, demonstrated extraordinary feats of aerial acrobatics. Their natural aggression had been channeled into increasingly elaborate performance routines. "The rhinestone costumes were their idea," Dr. Murphy whispered proudly. "They have a real eye for fashion design." But it was the cephalopod symphony that really captured the audience's attention. A group of giant squid, coordinating via sophisticated color changes, conducted an underwater orchestra of various marine species. Even I had to admit their tentacle control gave them a unique advantage in managing multiple musical sections simultaneously. "Professor Tentacles arranged this piece herself," Dr. Murphy beamed as the squid conductor took a bow, "though we had to have a serious talk about her attempt to add pyrotechnics to the performance." The galactic delegates watched in stunned silence as creature after creature demonstrated abilities no one had ever thought to look for. The Arcturians were particularly impressed by the tardigrade synchronized swimming team. "But how do you even see what they're doing?" one delegate asked. "Oh, we installed microscope screens throughout the arena," Dr. Murphy explained. "They're very proud of their routine. Been practicing for months." The real breakthrough came during the economic symposium led by Mr. Snuggles and his Wolverine Business Council. Their presentation on sustainable resource management and long-term investment strategies had several major banking consortiums taking notes. "The secret," Mr. Snuggles' translator explained, "is understanding that every resource is finite, just like Park Place properties in Monopoly. Also, always diversify your portfolio and never invest more than you can afford to lose in Baltic Avenue." I watched as the Wolverine adjusted his tiny glasses and used his claws to change PowerPoint slides. My report was starting to read like absurdist fiction. Former terror of the mountain now advocating for responsible fiscal planning. Presentation includes pie charts. The exhibition reached its climax with what the humans called the Grand Interspecies Collaboration. Every participating creature contributed their unique abilities to create something entirely new. The mantis shrimp provided the light show, the murder hornets handled aerial effects, the velociraptors danced, the cephalopods conducted, and the wolverines managed the budget. "You see," Dr. Murphy addressed the awestruck audience, "it was never about controlling or weaponizing these creatures. It was about giving them the opportunity to be more than just their natural weapons and defenses." The galactic delegates watched as a jumping spider wearing a tiny graduation cap demonstrated advanced web design principles, both the internet and silk variety. "Though I must admit," she added as we watched a cassowary perform a flawless tap dance solo, "some of their career choices surprised even us." By the end of the exhibition, it was clear that humanity's secret weapon wasn't a technology or technique at all. It was something far more powerful, the ability to look at the galaxy's most dangerous creatures and ask, "Yes, but what are your hobbies?" The success of the first Galactic Dangerous Species exhibition led to the establishment of the Interspecies Enrichment Initiative. Humanity, much to everyone's surprise and mild horror, was appointed as the galaxy's official friendship consultants. My final report to the Council ran to several thousand pages, though I feel the executive summary captured the essence. Humanity's apparent immunity to natural predators stems not from superior strength or advanced technology, but from their pathological need to befriend anything that could kill them. More disturbingly, they appear to be extremely good at it. The Galactic Council's response was to create a new diplomatic position, Ambassador of Interspecies Relations. Dr. Murphy was the obvious choice, though her first act in office raised several concerned eyebrows. A daycare center in the council headquarters? High Chancellor Vexathor's bioluminescent patches were flashing in distress. "Just a small one," Dr. Murphy assured them. "The jumping spiders are excellent at keeping the younger delegates entertained during long sessions. Plus, they've got some fantastic ideas about improving our internal web security." I watched as a team of arachnids in tiny security badges patrolled the quantum web interfaces. My additional note to the Council read, "Update. Spiders now handling cybersecurity. Effectiveness up 500%, though they keep adding glitter to the firewalls. The Enrichment Initiative's first major project was rehabilitating a swarm of space locusts that had been terrorizing the Crab Nebula. Within weeks, they'd been transformed into an elite gardening service specializing in zero-gravity topiary. They just needed a creative outlet, Dr. Murphy explained as we watched the locusts trim an asteroid field into a scale model of the solar system. Though we did have to talk them out of adding water features. Mr. Snuggles, meanwhile, had been promoted to head of the Galactic Commerce Commission's new Resource Management Division. His first act was to implement a galaxy-wide Monopoly tournament as a team-building exercise. "The Andromedans are still a bit salty about losing Boardwalk," Dr. Murphy confided, "but you should see their new fiscal responsibility metrics." Professor Tentacles had opened a chain of underwater engineering schools, though we still had to regularly confiscate unauthorized improvement plans for various stellar facilities. The latest incident involved a surprisingly well-designed upgrade to the Council's quantum coffee maker. "At least she filled out the proper paperwork this time," Dr. Murphy sighed, approving the modified blueprints, "and I must admit, the coffee is much better now." The Mantis Shrimp Art Collective had gone mainstream, their 12-color masterpieces becoming the most sought-after works in the galaxy, even though most species could only see a fraction of their full glory. They'd recently opened a gallery in the Council's main chamber, though visitors had to sign a waiver acknowledging that any criticism of the art might result in a very passionate discussion about color theory. Even the tardigrades had found their niche, establishing an interstellar racing league that had become the galaxy's most popular, if hardest-to-watch sport. The betting pools were managed by the Wolverine Financial Council, naturally. As for me, well, that's the most embarrassing part of this whole story. It happened during my final week of investigation. Dr. Murphy had taken me to observe what she called a routine rehabilitation of a box jellyfish, one of Earth's most venomous creatures. According to her, it had shown an amazing aptitude for interpretive dance. I'd meant to keep my professional distance, really I had. But then the jellyfish performed a hauntingly beautiful interpretation of the cosmic ballet of binary star formation. And, well, Ambassador Crixitol, High Chancellor Vexathor, addressed me during my final report presentation. "Is that a pet jellyfish floating beside you?" "This is Chairman Wobbles," I admitted, my chromatophores flushing with embarrassment. "He's been helping me with my interpretive movement therapy." The box jellyfish, wearing a tiny bow tie, for professionalism of course, executed a perfect figure-8 pattern. "He's also quite gifted at statistical analysis," I added weakly, "and he makes an excellent cup of tea." Dr. Murphy, sitting in the audience, gave me a thumbs up. And that's how I, a once respectable Galactic Council chronicler, ended up co-authoring a best-selling memoir with a choreographically gifted box jellyfish. The working title is Learning to Flow, A Journey of Cross-Species Understanding. Chairman Wobbles insisted on the subtitle. The Wolverines are handling our book deal negotiations, of course. Mr. Snuggles says we're getting a great return on investment. I suppose the humans were right all along. Sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe isn't teeth, claws or venom. It's the capacity to make friends in the most unexpected places. Though I still draw the line at murder hornets, even if they did send me a lovely friendship bracelet.